We welcome you to the Eagles Pregame Show, brought to you by SeatGeek. Here on Thursday, I'm Ben Goldstein, joined by Sam Heine. It is week, 13, 12? Week 12 of the NFL season, and it's time for Sunday Night Football. Back time game for the Eagles. This time, instead of here in cold Philadelphia, they're out in the warm Los Angeles, beautiful SoFi Stadium. 8-2 Eagles against the 7-5 Rams coming up. We are going to preview it all for you right here over the next hour. Sam, how are we?
Doing good. Like they say, we've been waiting all day for Sunday night. It's just about here. And this is a big one. This is a big one for the Eagles. Even though the Rams are 5-5, they've been playing very well recently. And in terms of conference, common opponent with the Lions, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But this is a really big game, and I'm really excited for it to get kicked off. We talked about last week about why I hate Thursday night football, because you have to wait so long for that next game, and we had to wait 2 time slots longer for this one, and I'm just itching for it to get kicked off. I've missed the Eagles over these last 10 days.
Yeah, I'm missing them too. It feels like I'm missing something, and finally we're able to get some Eagles football back going. And, going into this game, probably their toughest opponent for the Eagles is coming up next week in the Baltimore Ravens. This week, you're in Los Angeles, it's against the Rams. It's Sunday Night Football after such a long week, and it just has the feelings of, a kind of a trap game kind of thing. The Rams are playing better, but it's kind of people aren't really looking at it. Does this feel like a trap game to you, or is this, as you were saying, a big game?
Yeah, so I think this actually is a massive game, and I think the reason that people might feel like it's a trap game is just because, like you said, the Baltimore Ravens are up next week, which is obviously a highly anticipated game. It's one that we circled early in this season as one that would be kind of a measuring stick game for the Eagles, even though they have the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up as well, who beat the Baltimore Ravens. But I think one of the biggest reasons why it feels like a trap game is just because, one, the Eagles have been off for so long. You kind of have put them on the back burner a little bit in terms of the talk of the town. Obviously Philadelphia is such a plugged-in sports city that most of the city is reading something or listening to WIP or, doing something sports related. And a lot of the talk this week has been on the Sixers. Obviously the whole Joel Embiid situation, Paul George getting injured, Jared McCain going off, Tyrese Maxey coming back. Just there's been a lot of talk about the Sixers this week, where just our normal Eagles content that we assume every week. I mean, even if you go on Twitter, everyone's talking about the Sixers. No one's really talking about the Eagles. So I think from that standpoint, that could be why it feels like a trap game. But in terms of the actual game, I mean, this game is more important than the Baltimore game next week. I mean, you look at the odds for the playoffs and, who's going to get the number 1 seed in the NFC. And this is a major game for that. The Lions beat the Rams earlier in the season, so this is a common opponent game with them. And so this is one that the Eagles got to have from that standpoint. And then also one of the tiebreakers is conference opponents when you start going into playoff seeding as well. So the Ravens game obviously is going to be a big game next week, both locally and nationally. But in terms of what actually matters for the Eagles playoff seeding this year, this game matters more. And, obviously we don't want to do this, but if you had to choose to win one of the next 2, you'd rather choose to win this game because of the playoff implications. So I think maybe from the city standpoint, just because our mind has been on the basketball team a little bit more this week, it might be have a trap game feel. But I think the team is going to be taking this game very seriously. And the Rams have been hot recently, so they're no team to look over.
Yeah, I mean, we turned on I was in the car today, turned on WIP, expecting to get a little bit something about the Eagles, and we're talking about the Sixers on Eagles game day. It was very bizarre. But I mean, they are a pretty hot topic right now. And also, you look back early, if you scroll back on the YouTube page, you can find where we talked about, our regular season schedule. What are we thinking for these games, our picks? And you kind of look at these 2 games from then and now, and it's kind of like, if you split, you're happy because this is a tough back-to-back for the Eagles on the Sunday night and then the Sunday, which next week against Baltimore. It feels like you kind of, if you want to mentally be happy with it, you got to pick which one you'd rather have. And this one is a big one. So important for the Eagles to get this win tonight. And a big reason they may not win this game or win this game is because of Jalen Hurts. And he's going against a really good Rams defensive front. Of course, Jared Verse, Brendan Fisk of that Rams defensive line. You got the favorite for defensive rookie of the year. Like, how is Jalen going to do against these guys?
Yeah, I mean, the top two players in terms of rookie of the year odds, with Jared Verse being the favorite right now, are going to be matching up against each other. Out of Florida State, he was picked a little bit later in the draft than normally an edge rusher that's going to win defensive rookie of the year is normally picked, but he's had a really good year. I mean, I was a little bit surprised because, everyone talks about how great of a year he's having and how he's the favorite betting wise. And a lot of people still think he's the favorite for defensive rookie of the year. The odds have gotten a lot closer over the last few weeks with how well Quinyon has been playing, but he only has 4.5 sacks this year, 2 forced fumbles. I was expecting a little bit higher numbers from him in terms of sack wise, if he's going to definitely be the rookie of the year over Quinyon Mitchell. But at the same time, he's obviously deserves the respect of the Eagles offensive line. And Fisk, like you said as well, he has 5 sacks this season and 2 forced fumbles as well. So that's definitely something to keep your eye on, because these guys know how to get to the football and they know how to knock it out, which we all know Jalen Hurts, while he has cleaned it up, has had fumbling issues in his career and at points during this season. So that is definitely something to watch out with, and definitely something that Jalen needs to be conscious of. If he's scrambling, if he feels pressure, make sure he's holding on to that ball with 2 hands, because these guys will force it out. And we've seen how that has negatively impacted the team so far this season. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things, you look back to the Eagles, obviously, Aaron Donald was a Ram for a long time, so he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and was probably the best defensive tackle of our generation. The Eagles really did a good job against him his whole career. He never had a sack against the Eagles, I don't believe. Jason Kelce obviously is a big reason for that, but I feel like I say it every week when we're going up against elite pass rushers, that until an elite pass rusher really, really, really disrupts the game, I'm going to trust the Eagles offensive line, and I'm going to trust Jeff Stoutland. We've seen it over the last few weeks with some of these guys they played. I mean, Trey Hendrickson didn't really do anything, and that was against Fred Johnson. You go back to Myles Garrett, he didn't really do much. So I think the Eagles offensive line is going to do their thing. I think they're going to have a good game. But it is always a worry when you have 2 very good pass rushers on the other side of the ball, and guys like that who know how to knock the ball out as well.
It sure is. And another worry for the Eagles is Hurts in the first half. He really does hurt. There you go. A little play on words there. The Eagles in the first half. When you look back at last game, 10 for 19 with 101 yards in the first half. And then the second half, he comes back out after, getting his head smashed against the turf twice. Looked like he was concussed. After the game, he had the sunglasses on. But Scott Van Pelt was kind of like, oh, didn't look very good. And then, he goes out 8 for 9, 120 passing yards in the second half. Like, something just clicks with him at the second half. But his first half is so bad. He missed so many open guys. He missed 2 open guys in the end zone who were standing next to each other. He missed an A.J. Brown down the sideline who made his defender fall. He missed so many open guys, but made bad decisions, and just wasn't playing well, and then he always clicks it in the second half. But that's not going to fly against good teams and good defenses like the Rams have. How big of a worry is this, and could it come into play today?
Yeah, I mean, I said last week, it's my biggest worry for this team. I think this team is Super Bowl ready. You look from top to bottom in terms of coaching to defense to offense. I think this team is a complete team and is willing and ready to win a Super Bowl this year. But the biggest concern I have is these first half slow starts with the quarterback. Obviously last week there was some things that were out of his control. He threw the ball to Devontae on the sidelines. Devontae dropped it. There was another drop by a player, I believe it was Jahan Dotson. So obviously, those are not his fault. He put the ball on those guys' hands. You can always argue it could be a better pass, but at the end of the day, if it hits your hands, you got to catch it. So that's something that's out of his control. But just as a whole this season, he has started extremely slow. You look at his turnovers, they mostly come in the first half. Like you said, he was missing open receivers left and right. A.J. Brown was visibly very frustrated after he dropped his guy and was wide open. I think, one of the big things is that when you look at these second half numbers, I mean, even if you look at the numbers last week, 19 passing attempts in the first half, just 9 in the second half. They seem to lean on Saquon Barkley a lot more in the second half, lean on the running game a lot more in the second half. And Saquon Barkley leads the NFL in fourth quarter yards. So that's obviously a big factor in why this offense kind of is able to turn it around. I just think that sometimes they try to get Jalen going early in the game, and if they see that he's not there, not doing it, then they'll switch it up in the second half. He has to be better. I mean, he was bad. He was bad in the first half of last game, and for whatever reason, I've said this every week. If I'm going to criticize him for the first half, you have to give him credit for the second half. To come out, even if it's just 9 passing attempts, and he completes 8 of them, is fantastic. I mean, that's what we need to see from him. If he's not going to be the guy who's going to throw the ball 40 times, who's going to throw for 350 yards, going to throw for 4 touchdowns a game, we need to see him close to that 80% completion mark and not turning the ball over. And when there's easy throws to be made, that's what needs to be there. And I think, while there was a lot of Sixers talk this week, one of the biggest talking points is that this passing offense just isn't that good. You have all the talent in the world on offense with Saquon Barkley, who is a good receiver out of the backfield, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. But the Eagles' passing offense is still 15th in the league in DVOA. So the fact that they're a middle-of-the-pack passing offense with all this talent around them, I mean, there's only one player to look at, and that's the quarterback. And, I know a lot of people are going to point around the league, and they're going to say, well, Patrick Mahomes isn't playing well this year, and quarterback play is down across the league, and that's fine. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Jalen's not playing up to the standard that we need him to play so far this season. And, there's going to be a game, whether it's the playoffs, whether it's the Super Bowl, whether it's an important game down the stretch, where a team is just going to stack the box and say, Jalen Hurts, you need to beat us. And he's going to need to play a complete game. And so far, we just haven't seen that. He's played great halves. He's played good halves at times. We haven't seen a complete game out of him. And, I mean, today's an opportunity for that. You look at, obviously, Devontae Smith is not going to be playing today, which is a huge loss. But elite quarterbacks, they make the other guys better when they're missing receivers. I mean, you look at the receivers that Patrick Mahomes has right now, and while he's not playing great, I mean, the guys he won a Super Bowl with last year, off the street. So he needs to be able to make these guys better. And the Rams passing defense, very bad, 23rd in the NFL. So he needs to take advantage of it today. It's an opportunity for him to play a complete game today. And until we start seeing them put together some, full games from the passing standpoint, it's going to be hard to believe that this team can actually go and reach their potential that they have, because it's going to be hard for them to score with teams if they're just going to be a running team.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about, Hurts needs to play a complete game. If there's guys stacking the box, I mean, this Rams defensive line, it might be the best the Eagles have faced all year. Could today be that day? You need Hurts to kind of move the ball around a little bit and get a real game out of him?
Yeah, and I think with Devontae out too, that's going to be a big part, because so much of how the Eagles can beat you is that you can't leave anyone one-on-one. You leave a light box, they run it with they run it with Saquon or Jalen at times. And obviously we've seen how effective that has been. You stack the box and you leave the guys outside one-on-one. I mean, good Lord, A.J. Brown's beating that every time. And to Jalen's credit, he is a fantastic deep ball. Him and A.J., that's the best play in the playbook, is A.J. Brown one-on-one, chuck it up to him, and he's running under it. So I think with Devontae being out today, they are going to feel a little bit better on sending help over to AJ's side, and then leaving Jahan Dotson, Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, Jahan Dotson, those kind of guys one-on-one, and just seeing if they can win their matchups. So it's definitely, I think that it could definitely be a game that Jalen's going to have to win with his arm, and we're going to see if he'll be able to do it. I mean, you look at a team like the Lions, right? I mean, they're scoring like crazy, and everyone thinks that we're in a collision course with them. We're going to have to be able to throw the ball to beat them, and we've yet to see them do it so far this season in a full game capacity.
Yeah, all right. You've mentioned Devontae Smith a few times. He's out today for the Eagles with he's had a lingering hamstring injury. This is a little chart about the Rams' pass defense and just kind of how bad it is. You look at the opposing passing yards per game. They rank 22nd in the league. Opposing yards average per play, it's 30th in the league. Like, this is a pretty bad Rams pass defense. Jalen Hurts is going to have to take advantage of it, and Britton Covey is going to return today. He is active. He's been out with a shoulder injury. A.J. Brown seems to always play very well against the Rams, and this Rams secondary, it's young and not very good.
Yeah, and I don't think the Eagles are going to go away from their game plan. It's what's gotten them to 8-2 after that bye week when they were 2-2. They came out and they decided that they're going to tone down the passing a little bit and they're going to ride Saquon a little bit more. And I mean, they're on a 6-game winning streak, and we all think that they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So there's no reason to stop that now. But yeah, when Jalen has the opportunity to throw the ball and has the opportunity to make plays, he's definitely going to have to take advantage of it because, like you said, good defensive line. I think they're going to try to stop Saquon Barkley as much as they can. So yeah, he's going to have to put together a complete game on the pass. And I think one of the biggest things too is just take advantage of the opportunities when they're there. We've seen him be so trigger shy a lot of the time this season, and I think that in some part is because of the turnovers. Early in the season he's trying to dial those back, which he has. And so sometimes he can be a little trigger shy. But when the opportunities are there, he's got to hit them, and we'll see if AJ Brown can have a big night tonight against this weak secondary.
Yeah, he always seems to play pretty well against this Rams defense, especially the last time they played them. I think he had a really good game. But you're getting Britton Covey back. Jahan Dotson's going to have to be involved. Johnny Wilson, who we've seen a little bit as well. So, we'll see what you can get. And it might have to be the Eagles defense again, who are going to bail the Eagles out. And hopefully it's not, but you could see it.
Yeah, I mean, the offense has been great in the second half. If it's crazy because they always seem to be right there in it at halftime, and then they just pull away. And that has a lot to do with Jalen's passing, it has a lot to do with Jalen's running, and obviously Saquon Barkley. But they just need to start putting together a little bit more of these consistent games and getting out to lead in the first quarter. Imagine we do that, it would be amazing. And a lot of times we've gotten that just because of turnovers, but it's going to be interesting. Like you said, the Rams offense has the firepower to start hot and keep scoring. So it might be a shootout today. You never know. The defense is playing great, but the Rams definitely have a lot of talent on offense. While they lack some on defense, their offense, it's got it all.
It sure does. Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyren Williams. That's all thing. Puka Nacua, I guess this week, just found out that he plays in the NFC West. Just found that out. It's kind of odd.
I find that hard to believe. I mean, they talk so much about winning your division. That's the first goal of every team. So I don't know. That seems a little far-fetched for me.
Yeah, he plays in a pretty mediocre division this year too. So maybe they're just like, oh, last year is always going to be the Niners trying to get a wild card spot, but this year it's up, and the guys are like, oh, we're in the NFC West. Yeah, Puka, you're on the, as west as you can be in America. And you're in the NFC. So that's kind of strange to me. But yeah, I mean, this might be the toughest test so far for this year, really, for this Eagles defense. Really, the secondary as well. How's this Eagles defense going to fare against this talented Rams offense?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of questions on whether or not this Eagles defense is legit. I mean, depending where you look, they're the number one ranked defense in the NFL right now. I mean, they've been playing absolutely fantastic. A lot of people thought that last week was going to be a big test with them against Washington with Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin and Austin Eckler and Zach Ertz and all those guys. And a lot of people thought that the Cincinnati Bengals were going to be a big test because of how great Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are. Earlier in the season, all the way back to week 1, you got the Green Bay Packers and then the New Orleans Saints, who had scored, the most points through week 3 in NFL history or whatever it was. And every time they've stepped up to the plate, and they've done a great job. The only game that they didn't play well was against Tampa, and ever since then, again, out of the bye week, they've done a great job. The Rams have it all. They have a quarterback, they have 2 great wide receivers, and they have a really good running back. A lot like the Eagles. I'd still take the Eagles' skill players over the Rams, but it is very close. And Matthew Stafford, obviously a veteran quarterback. While he is a statue back there, if you can get pressure on him, you can get him down. I mean, he'll pick you apart if you let him. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, best duo the Eagles have faced defensively. So it's going to be a big test for Darius Slay, big test for Quinyon Mitchell, and a big test for Cooper DeJean. Cooper Kupp's going to move around. He's going to be in the slot a lot today. So Cooper DeJean, he's been playing insanely well since getting inserted into the starting lineup. So it'll be really exciting to see how he does against Cooper Kupp. But you got Nacua on the outside. Kupp can obviously go to the outside. And then Kyron Williams, he's a very dynamic back, has 750 rushing yards so far already this season. It's not Saquon's 1,000 plus, but it is very, very good this season so far. Those big guys up front are going to have to step up. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter obviously has been playing great recently. We're going to need it to continue today because they got a lot of weapons. They can beat you in a lot of ways, and it's going to be exciting. It's exciting to see what this team does, and I think it's very similar to what the Lions can do to you. Good running back, good quarterback who can step back there and pick you apart. You got good wide receivers on the outside. So it's going to be a big test for our young players on defense. But, if they beat the Rams and if they hold the Rams to, under 20 points, around 20 points, I mean, there's no more questions about if this defense is legit or not. This is just about as big as a test they're going to get. And if they pass it again, I mean, we're in for a long run, I think.
Yeah, it sure seems like it, especially when you got Quinyon Mitchell on your side. Here are some stats from last week for Quinyon when he went up against Terry McLaurin. He lined up against him on 20 of 25 routes, including 19 of 20 line wide. And Mitchell was not targeted on any of his coverage snaps against Terry McLaurin. He locked him down that much that didn't even try it. And Quinyamino Bay, as he's been getting called, was targeted just once all night, and his target was incomplete. Quinyon has allowed a half a yard per coverage snap, the second fewest among quarterbacks with at least 100 coverage snaps. He should be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. I wrote the 22nd overall pick has been incredible against some of the best. All right, I wrote all that. Whatever. He's been unbelievable. Can he do it again against Puka and Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, so today's going to be interesting because what the Eagles have done primarily this year when they've had both Slay and Quinyon on the field is they've kind of left them on their sides of the field. They haven't really been – we've seen Darius Slay in past years kind of, run with a guy. Everyone thinks about the Justin Jefferson matchup a couple of years ago on Monday Night Football where that was Slay's best game as an Eagle. I mean, he completely locked him down, but Slay was running with him the whole way, whether he was on the left side, right side. But this year, because of how well Quinyon's been doing, they just leave him on one side of the field. Quinyon's got the left side. Darius Slay's got the right side. And the Rams are going to move these guys around. Sean McVay, we all know he's extremely creative with his route tree. He's going to be moving these guys inside and out. He's going to try to find the best matchup. If he thinks that Cooper Kupp's best matchup is against Cooper DeJean, then we'll see Kupp in the slot a lot. If he thinks that Cooper Kupp's best matchup is against Darius Slay, because Slay has had knee issues so far this season and a groin issue. So he's, obviously going to be a little slower, then he's going to be there. Nakua as well. Nakua can go in, he can go out. So it's going to be really interesting to just see how Sean McVay moves these guys around and try to create those matchups. But I trust these guys. I trust the secondary. I mean, the one thing that's really good about this Eagles secondary, Quinyon and Cooper, is they're both great tacklers. That's something that's been underrated, I feel like, so far when they've come in. It's just how much better the tackling have gotten because they've been great tacklers. So I think it's obviously going to be a big test for them. Kupp and Nakua are fantastic wide receivers, but I trust our guys back there. I think that they're going to have another good game, and I'll talk about it a little later, but I think Quinyon Mitchell wins Defensive Rookie of the Year tonight.
It is a battle of the two Defensive Rookie of the Year candidates, or I guess three if you want to throw in, Cooper DeJean, a possibility. The Rams got two guys on that defensive line that could be in the running for it. All right, let's jump back to the offensive side of the ball. Saquon Barkley's gotten the ball a ton this year. We've mentioned it. You kind of were the first out there with this new offensive philosophy. I'm giving you all the credit for breaking the story on that. Saquon, this might be the best Saquon will ever be as a Philadelphia Eagle. Should his touches be getting lessened and be limiting him a little bit so he's fresh and ready to go for the postseason and for seasons beyond? It's been a debate throughout the last few weeks, and as we're getting deeper into the season, it feels like it's becoming more apparent.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I've kind of rattled with in my brain over the last few weeks because we do have Saquon Barkley here for 3 years, right? He's obviously an insane talent. He could win MVP this year. He could win the Offensive Player of the Year this year. And he has obviously been absolutely fantastic and the MVP of this team. But at the same time, you do have him for 2 more years after this year. You look at Christian McCaffrey, he had a fantastic season last year for the 49ers. They rode him all the way to the Super Bowl. And this year, he couldn't even play until week 10 because of his legs. Saquon's on pace, if we ride this thing all the way out to the Super Bowl, for over 400 touches this season. I mean, that is just an absolutely absurd amount of carries and touches and hits and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I can't say to limit his touches because, one, the passing offense isn't where we need it to be. So I don't want to rely on that to bring us to wins because it hasn't been able to. And two, I've said this all show, we're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I mean, it's us and the Lions in the NFC right now. I don't really see anyone else. I mean, Minnesota, but does anyone really believe that, if Minnesota has to come here in the playoffs, that Sam Darnold's going to knock us off? Like, I don't. So it's really us and the Lions in terms of competing for the spot to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And you only get so many of these chances. Obviously we had one 2 years ago and we ended up losing that game, unfortunately, but you got to take advantage of what is here and now. If you want to give Kenny Gainwell 3 to 5 more carries a game, go right ahead. That is completely fine with me, but I am not taking away Saquon's carries from 3 to 5 Kenny Gainwell carries to 10 Kenny Gainwell carries. That's just too much. I mean, he's just the engine that runs this team. And when you have a Super Bowl opportunity, you have to go and capitalize on it. And Saquon's our best chance right now. And if that means that 2 years from now he's not the same player and we're paying $12 million to a old running back, then at least we try for, you know what I mean? Like, I can't think like that. I need to take advantage of the here and now. And if he's a diminished player in 2 years, at least we got the best out of him right now, and we could say we gave it our all.
Yeah, and maybe they'll have a Super Bowl trophy to go with it, hopefully, that comes in February. But, I mean, if you think about it, if Jalen Hurts is playing a complete game, imagine the score of some of these games. Imagine the Washington game last week if you had Jalen Hurts not missing those open guys and completing those passes and, just other things going on. The Eagles win by a ton over Washington last week, and maybe Saquon's out of the game in the fourth quarter, where he really needed to be in the game in the fourth quarter. He got those 2 touchdowns in like the 30 seconds, and that's what won them the game. And, some other, like the Dallas game, Saquon could have been out of there halfway through the third quarter. If you really think about it, if the Eagles were able to play a complete game. So did he, I think, I'm sitting behind a computer, not with a headset on the field, but you try and get Hurts to get confidence in himself to play a complete game. Try and pass the ball a little bit today. Get Saquon off the field as quick as possible. Limit those rushing attempts against this bad Rams, secondary. But will it really happen? Is this just who the Eagles are? And, they're going to need Saquon to carry them there because the passing offense isn't good? Or I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because, like you said, if you look at some of these games, I mean, if they're able to jump out early on these teams, I mean, Saquon Barkley, like I said earlier, he's, number one in the league in fourth quarter rushing yards. They've had to use him late in the games. And part of that is the salt away wins. You're up by a score. You take a 7-minute drive down the field. You go score that last touchdown with the tush push, and you put the game out of reach. And that's exactly why you signed Saquon Barkley. But some of these games, if you were scoring points in the first half and it wasn't 7-6 at halftime, or it wasn't 10-6 at halftime, or you know what I mean? Like some of these scores where it's just so close at half and you need to just rely on Saquon. I mean, I even said it earlier. You look at Jalen's passing numbers and his passing attempts in the first half compared to the second half. Even last week, it was 19 in the first half to 9 in the second half. So if they're just able to take advantage of some of these opportunities in the first half, get some points on the board early, get some touchdowns early, you can kind of let some of these other guys get in there, and a lot more of these games can be blowouts. I think, I think you're right with that.
Also, another thing that we need to touch on, and Jake Elliott has just not been himself this year, especially not against Washington. He's been like really bad this year, and it's the first time he's been really bad in his career since his 2017 season. He missed from 44, 51, and an extra point He is now 14 for 19 this season and 0 for 4 from 50 yards out, which he used to be automatic from down deep. He's kind of like Steph Curry of the NFL and just kind of hasn't been there. His 5 misses this year equal his number of misses from 2022 and 2023 combined. And when I saw that, I couldn't believe it. Just how good he's been and how bad he's been this year. He's one of the best kickers in NFL history if you look at his real numbers. And he's having a bad year. And is it a concern? Is it a problem?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason too, to tie this back to the first half struggles, the Eagles did get in field goal position a little bit last week, and Jake missed 2 of them. So that obviously contributed to the slow start. And I know a lot of people want to say that, well, they would have scored in the first half, but it's more of a season-long thing than it is just one game. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously a concern. I mean, you look back to 2020, there was some talk about how to get out of his contract because Eagles gave him a contract extension and he was missing a few kicks, but he obviously turned it around and has gone back. I mean, I still trust him. I mean, he's been here for so long. He's made so many big kicks. He's a guy that I know is going to get it right. I think just because I've seen him struggle before in 2020 and then turn it back around, I think that we know that he can do it. But yeah, I mean, for the here and now, I'm talking about next season when I'm saying I think he can turn it around. But for the here and now, it's impossible to not, be thinking about it. I mean, I kind of put it as, you walk up to he's kind of in his head a little bit. That's what happens. A lot of times you walk up to a golf shot and you just shanked one into the woods, and your next one, you're thinking about your swing and your mechanics, and then you just chunk it because you're just thinking way too much. And sometimes I know I've heard, David Akers talk about this and some other kickers when they've talked, and, it can kind of spiral on you there because it is a lot mechanic based and stuff like that. So it's definitely a concern for this year. I have no doubt that he's going to be putting in all that extra work to try to, get better. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can't be concerned, especially with how much it could have affected the game last week. If that's a closer game, I mean, he's the reason we lose.
Yeah, last week, if Jalen Hurts was able to find the wide open Saquon Barkley or Devontae Smith in the end zone when they were both standing right next to each other, and Jake Elliott was able to make all his kicks, the Eagles would have won the game 37-18.
Yeah.
And then if you delete, because, I mean, at that point, it's 37-10, Washington isn't going to drive down the field to try and make it close and make it competitive and get that touchdown, the 2-point conversion. The Eagles win that game 37-10. I mean, Saquon's out of the game pretty early.
But yeah, there's been a lot of, last game was a lot of missed opportunities, and they still won, which shows that this team, is really, really good. When you have a team that can go out there and make as many mistakes as they did last week and still win that game against a division opponent who was playing extremely well, I mean, that just shows that even when they're not on their A game, they can still beat, some of the better class of the NFL. And it makes you excited about what they can potentially be when they are on their A game, and I'd love to see that. I feel like at 8-2, well, I feel like this year is a lot more of a real 8-2 than last year's 10-1. I think last year we all kind of knew that it was, a little bit of a fluky 10-1. They weren't playing well at all, but they were just squeaking out these wins. Where this year, they've dominated some teams and they've done some really good things against some good quarterbacks and stuff like that. So, and the second half, I mean, Jalen, Saquon, the defense has been fantastic in the second half. So while I feel like this year is a much better 8-2, we've still yet to really see a complete full game of football from this team. And it's obviously in there, but it just shows that even when they're not on their A game, they're still talented enough to go out and beat one of the better teams in the NFC. And I don't know how that doesn't make you excited as an Eagles fan going into, the stretch run here.
It sure does. The Eagles looking for their 7th straight win of the season. Hopefully that comes tonight. We can all go to sleep happy and wake up for Thanksgiving week and be happy about it. If you have some family that aren't Eagles fans, you can brag a little bit and say, we're 9-2 and you stink. So, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone who was watched throughout the year, and everybody. Happy Thanksgiving, and don't spend too much money on Black Friday. The holidays are coming up, and we got some sponsors to talk about later that are hooking you up for the holidays. All right, Notable matchups for today: Eagles, Rams. Good defense versus good defense. What are we thinking?
Yeah, I feel like whenever we get to these notable matchups, it's always people that we've talked a lot about so far in the show, but it's hard not to go with the cornerbacks. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and Darius Slay versus Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Like I said, Sean McVay is going to be moving these guys in and out. He's going to have them in motion. He's going to have them outside. He's going to have them inside. He's going to do as many creative things as we're going to see probably all year long besides playing the Lions to try to get these guys open on a great Eagles secondary. I'm confident that the Eagles secondary will be able to hold these guys in check. I'm not saying that, we're going to hold them to under 20 yards like Quinyon Mitchell's been doing every week, but I think that we're going to, for the most part, hold them in check. I think the defense is going to have another good game. If you look at Vic Fangio historically, he has had the number of Sean McVay. He's done very well against him. I think that continues tonight. And, I talked about it a little bit, but I think Quinyon Mitchell will have a really good game, and we'll get to him a little bit later. And then number two, I got two notable matchups. I got Jalen versus the Rams passing defense. Another thing we talked about a lot, but it is worth reiterating, the Rams passing defense is very bad. And even without Devontae Smith, elite quarterbacks make their other guys better. And I think Jalen needs to do that today against a bad secondary. Interesting fact, A.J. Brown has never played a game without Devontae Smith. So it's going to be really interesting to see how A.J. Brown, well, as an Eagle, obviously.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see how A.J. Brown does without, his counterpart on the other side getting that extra coverage. Not that A.J. doesn't see an insane amount of coverage every week, but there's going to be even more because Smitty's obviously a great receiver, so they have to worry about him as well. But yeah, Jalen needs to take advantage of a poor Rams passing defense today. I would love to see the Eagles passing offense kind of click today, get things going early and often. And it's one of the biggest matchups of the game.
Yeah, you sure hope so. And I mean, this is only the third game Devontae Smith is missing in his career, and it's the second this season he missed the game in Tampa Bay. Him and A.J. Brown were out for that one, and that game was not a fun one. We like to forget that one here. But it's impressive stuff from Smitty, and it's unfortunate he can't go today. But what is fortunate is the money that you can save at SeatGeek. And SeatGeek, well, it's holiday season, and the Sixers games aren't that fun to go to, but it's still always a great gift. Sixers, Flyers, Eagles playoffs coming up. Eagles should be hosting a playoff game. Philly spring training also will be right here before you know it. You can get everything you want: concerts, comedy shows, everything is on SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the easiest and most efficient way to buy your tickets. Each seat is given a green, red, or yellow dot, indicating whether that purchasing that ticket would be a good, bad, or fair deal. By using the code Philly Sports Report, you will save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Again, that's Philly Sports Report. Save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. The link is in the description or the bio on all social medias to save. And now we move into the SeatGeek Standout Stars. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring the show and this segment, as they have for the years we've been doing the show. Go hook your family up and friends, family with some tickets, and save some money as well with SeatGeek. Sam, what do you got for our Standout Stars?
Yeah, so number one, Quinyon Mitchell. I think he's going to have another lockdown game today. I don't know if he's going to hold them to his standard of under 30 yards. It might be, around 40 to 50, but I think the narrative is going to start to switch after this game that Quinyon Mitchell should be the defensive rookie of the year. I think that the Rams, because they have two great wide receivers, are actually going to throw at him this game because teams have just stopped throwing his way completely. That's how sticky he has been all season long. I think I've been calling for it. I think he gets his first pick tonight in the defensive rookie of the year matchup. I think the Eagles offensive line and Jeff Stoutland are going to do a great job against Jared Verse tonight. And I think people are going to look at Quinyon Mitchell and on another national stage say, wow, this kid just locked up Terry McLaurin for no catches. He did a great job against Puka and against Cooper Kupp. And he had a pick tonight. That kid deserves the rookie of the year. And I think he's going to have a great game again tonight. And then Jalen Carter, I talked about it a little bit with Matthew Stafford, but while Stafford is still a very good quarterback, he is a statue in the pocket. He's not somebody who's going to get around. He is somebody that is very good at moving inside the pocket, but he's not going to escape the pocket on you. He's been fantastic recently, and Jalen Carter. I mean, we saw he had that great game against the Saints, and we're all like, wow, okay, this is the guy that we thought we were drafting number 9 overall and had the potential to go number 1 overall. And he's been showing it the last couple of weeks as well. It hasn't exactly been showing up in terms of a sack number, but if you look at that game last week, he was in Jaden Daniels' face all night long. I think he's going to have another really good game today, and I think he's, going to continue to be the best player on the line going forward throughout the rest of the season. I mean, he's going to wreak some havoc today. And again, like I said, too, with Kyron Williams, he's a really good back, and Jalen Carter is going to need to do well in that aspect of the game as well tonight.
Yeah, Jalen Carter isn't getting the sacks, but he's been very disruptive. And I was talking with somebody, and they said to me that Jalen Carter is as good right now as Fletcher Cox was in his prime. Do you agree, or do you? I hardly disagree. It's like there's no way.
No. No, I mean Fletcher Cox was when they did the All-Decade team for the 2010s. There was 2 starting defensive tackles on that team, Aaron Donald and Fletcher Cox. Jalen Carter has that potential for sure. I mean, I've heard people on WIP say that he shows flashes of Jerome Brown, which obviously is an insane comp and such a compliment to Jalen Carter. But Fletcher Cox, I think people kind of forget what Fletcher Cox was 2015, 2016, 2017. He was the best player on the Eagles in 2017. He was outstanding that season. And, Jalen Carter definitely has the potential to be even better than Fletcher Cox was. And he's showing the signs of that. But in terms of right now, I can't say that. But, 5 years from now, we're looking back, he definitely has the potential. But I think people forget how good Fletcher was.
Yeah, and my thing was like Fletcher Cox was the best player on a Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah.
If the Eagles win the Super Bowl this year, Jalen Carter was not going to be the best player on that team. Could he be the best player on the defensive line? Yeah, probably, but not the entire team. Like that was my thing. I was like, there's no way like you're being like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, they literally put out this all 2010 team, best players at every single position for the 2010 to 2019. Aaron Donald, Fletcher Cox, 2 starting defensive tackles. I mean, he was fantastic, and Jalen definitely has the potential. I mean, you look at guys like Chris Jones. He has the potential to be that level, and we're seeing it. We're starting to see it, and I'm excited to see him continue the rest of the season, and excited to see what he's going to be next year too, because we know he's just going to keep getting better.
He sure is. All right, the Gamblers are us locks of the game. Make sure to go listen to the Gamblers Are Us podcast wherever you find your podcast. The Eagles are -2.5 today, which I feel like is kind of low for the Rams are playing better, so they want to keep it a little close. And the over/under is 47.5. What do we have today, Sam?
Yeah, so when I checked it right before we got on, at least down here, the Eagles were -3. So it looked like some late money came in on the Eagles. I'm not sure where the people up in Philly will be able to get it at. But at least for me, it was at -3, so that's what I'm going off of. I like the Eagles with the points here. I think normally when you're doing the betting, the home team gets about 2.5 to 3 points in turn, just automatically for just home field advantage. Obviously, the Rams have absolutely no home field advantage because they don't have a fan base in Los Angeles. They obviously have a fan base in St. Louis, but not in Los Angeles. A big thing obviously is the travel going across the country, but I don't think that's that big of a deal. So in reality, what they're telling you is that the Eagles are about 5.5 to 6 points better than the Rams, they think, if you take away that 3 to 2.5 for home field advantage. So I do think the Eagles are better by a touchdown or just about. So I like the Eagles with the points here. If I like the Eagles with the points, that means I obviously like the Eagles with the money line. I think the over/under of 47.5 is set at a really good number. I have this game just barely going over that, but I think that's a really good number. Jalen Hurts, anytime touchdown. I mean, free money. It's -150, I think, but that's way too high even. If you just put that, or you want to put 2 touchdowns, it's going to hit most of the time. And something I thought was interesting was Grant Calcaterra's over/under for receiving yards was 5.5 receiving yards. 5.5. That's just about 1 catch. We saw when Dallas Goedert was injured that Grant Calcaterra was a decent part of this offense. Obviously Smitty and Goddard different positions, but I do think that Calcaterra has become somebody that Jalen knows that he can trust. That I think that with obviously Devontae being out, there might go some more 12 personnel, that two tight end, and we might see Grant Calcaterra. I mean, it's worth throwing $3 on it to see if he gets one catch for 6 yards. It's super low. We've seen him go over it a lot in the past. So those are the things I like for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Grant Calcaterra feels like he's sometimes more involved in the offense than Dallas Goedert is. So, I mean,
yeah,
it feels like a lock for 5.5 over for the receiving yards. All right, the FOCO fit check. We want to thank FOCO as always. And if you go over to phillysportsports.com right now, you can find if you need gifts for your Philadelphia sports fan that you know and love, check out this article that FOCO put together. We got the Phillies overalls. We got the Eagles hat. That's a nice looking hat right there.
That was a nice hat.
We got a Sixers bag. We got the Eagles velour suit. This is what Jason Kelsey was rocking when Monday Night Football came to Philadelphia. We got the Fanatic ornament, a nice Eagles ugly Christmas sweater, a Sixers Christmas sweater, a nice Eagles beanie. They got a ton of beanies over there for the Eagles. We got some onesie pajamas with the Eagles. We got, these things are so comfortable. I have one of these. It's like the pullover blanket thing. They are nice. We got the nice Phillies purse. It's not a Lego, but it's like an Eagles build stadium thing. We got, if you're looking to cook, Sam, I know you're a big cook. You may need to get
there we go. Nice.
You got some Eagles shot glasses, and then you got your Flyers friendship bracelet. So go check these out right now. If you are looking for some gifts, I saw you were looking at this hat.
Yeah, it's a nice one. As you know, I'm a hat guy. That's a really, really good one. Maybe we'll see it pop up on a stream here. They got some good ones. I've been checking them out.
Yeah, FOCO's got a ton of hats going on. They just kind of got in the hat thing. So I mean, you can even look like Wardo t-shirts, Joshua Block. You can be you could be the Eagles captain. So there you go. All right, moving on. The FOCO fit check, Sam. You're not rocking the captain hat, but you're rocking some Super Bowl championship merch right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're going back. I like to tie in my jerseys as best as I can. And today I'm wearing a former Ram. I'm going with the Chris Long Super Bowl 52 champions jersey. It's crazy because Chris was only here for a short time. Obviously won a Super Bowl in his first year with the Eagles, then was back for the second. And even though he was only with us for 2 years, he claims us. He's one of our own. I loved when he was on the team. I loved him as a player. And this is obviously, a little bit of a rare jersey of Chris Long. So I'm excited to have it and got to rep the former first-round pick, I believe number 1 overall pick from the Rams back forever ago. And then he came over to the good side and won a Super Bowl with us. And now it's almost like he never was a Ram because you would think he was an Eagles number 1 overall pick because of how much he loves the city and we loved him back. And yeah, I mean, everyone loves Chris Long and loves how much he's accepted us, and obviously him winning a Super Bowl with us and how great he was that year.
Yeah, Eagles legend now, Chris Long. So appreciate FOCO for sponsoring that. Go check out that holiday guide and get yourself some beautiful Philly sports attire. All right, keys to the game today. A little bit different ones you got this time than we've been going out throughout the year, but still essential.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be boring, but the keys are simple. Get off to a hot start. I mean, we talked about it all show. I feel like we talked about it all year. But I think today is a little bit more important than just about every game because while we'll say the Eagles need to get out to a hot start, they've won these games without it. They've played some of these lesser teams. Obviously, Washington might not be as good as we all think. They lost today to Cooper Rush. Cleveland and the Giants and the Cowboys without Dak, these teams stink. But the Rams do not stink. So I think today it is a little bit more important than it has been in weeks past because this game has the potential to be a shootout. We all trust the Eagles defense at this point. We all think the Eagles defense is very good. But, there are games where we can't expect the Eagles defense to come out and 16 out of 17 games play to a team, keeping a team under 20 points. There's eventually going to be a team that is able to move the ball on them. So the Eagles need to get out hot, get out and start fast. And I think, what you said too earlier about trying to get Saquon Barkley some rest in the second half is so important. If we can jump on the Rams, then you can rest Saquon in fourth quarter. You don't need to be running him down to salt the clock away to try to take a late score to extend a lead to 2 scores or to take the lead or whatever it is. So, it just helps in so many different ways. And it's the biggest key to just about all these games going forward, because whether or not, it's going to be a key every game because they need it for the playoffs. They need to start, and they need to start figuring out how to get out of the gate hot, because in the playoffs, that's how you get clipped. You come out with a bad half, and then you're trying to play catch up, and it just doesn't work. So it's super important this game and going forward. And then number 2 is get pressure on Matthew Stafford. This defensive line, we didn't talk about it, but Bryce Huff possibly out for the year, possibly coming back at the end of the season. He was turning it on a little bit recently. He had that play against Dallas. We started to notice him at least. So Jalix Hunt is going to be getting his snaps. Third-round pick from this season, who is not projected to play at all this year, actually, because he was transitioning from safety, I believe, safety or linebacker, one of the two. I think it was safety. And super athletic kid. But the fact that he's gotten snaps so far this season already, I believe he had a tackle the other day, so it'll be exciting to see what he can do today. But Stafford's not really somebody who's going to escape the pocket, and we all know that this defensive secondary is able to cover, but there's only so long that you can cover for. So Matthew Stafford, if he's able to just stand back there, he will pick you apart. He will dink and dunk down the field. You're giving him 3, 4, 5, and even 6 seconds to throw the football. So the Eagles need to get some pressure on him, put him in the turf, and I think they'll have some success on defense today.
Yeah, we all know who Matthew Stafford is. He's a former baseball player. He's got those weird arm angles and stuff. He can tear somebody apart. So he can really be dirty. So you got to get to him. Yeah, Bryce Huff getting procedure done on his wrist. He's expected to hopefully return sometime this season. But it's safe to say he was turning it on a little bit. He was playing better. And as he was playing better, so was the Eagles' defense. So it's interesting kind of how that'll affect it today.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It goes on Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt now. These guys, these young players. Nolan Smith has turned it on a little bit so far in his second year, which is really exciting to see, because as a first-round pick from last year, he had bust written all over him after year 1. But it seems like he's turning into a little bit of a player. I think he's 3.5 sacks right now, which – if he had one more, he could be in line for Rookie of the Year. Apparently, that's the standard, I guess. Jalix Hunt, I just talked about him. It's going to be exciting to see what he can do. And then, Josh Sweat, he's been very good recently. He's up to, I think, last I saw 6 sacks, maybe. He's been really turning it on recently. And we saw last year when he kind of trailed off, the whole defensive line kind of trailed off. So hopefully he can keep it going and he can keep putting pressure on the quarterback. And, some of these guys too, Milton Williams has done a good job at times getting in there. Moro Ojomo has gotten some good pass rush snaps. So while they don't have that elite pass rusher, which we all think they're going to try to add, whether it's in the draft or free agency this offseason, for now they're picking up the pieces and they're doing a decent job.
Yeah, they sure are. All right, let's move it on to our game predictions. We do have some predictions in the chat today. All right, we got Little G Griffith said Eagles 28, Rams 14. I'm kind of feeling that a little bit. This guy said that you're wrong. He's calling this guy out. He's got 15 points. So I don't know. It's kind of not cool. And then we got 34-24. Eagles are taking it. All right, I kind of agree with G Griffith here. Kind of a good score there. I got Eagles 28. Rams 17. Eagles defense keeping them under 20 points. They're putting their Joshua Block captain hat on and paving the way, rolling the ship, and being the kings of not New York but of Philadelphia and getting the Eagles to a win today.
I like it. There will be no question if this defense is legit from anyone, nationally, locally, if they hold this Rams team to under 20 points. I feel not pretty close to the same as you. I have a very similar score. I have the Eagles winning this game 27-21. I think it's going to be a close game early, like they all are. I think the Eagles offense is going to come out a little slow. Let's all hope it's not that way, but just the trends kind of show that. Then I think the Eagles turn it on in the second half. I think Jalen Hurts plays better in the second half. I think the Eagles keep running Saquon in the second half, and I think they'll pull away at the end of this game. I think the Rams will come in and get field goal, something like that late. But I think the Eagles will take it 27-7, 27-21. Sorry, I was reading yours there.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing over and over again. A slow start, it's close, having opportunities, and then pulling it away in the second half. And hopefully we're both wrong, and the Eagles just have full control of this one, and we can stop Joshua Block on this show.
My favorite thing to do every week is, obviously commercial break in between plays. I'm scrolling on Twitter and all these Eagles accounts and Eagles personalities I follow, and they're posting the screenshots of Jalen, and they're posting, oh my God, Jake Elliott missed the field goal. What is this? This team stinks. And then as soon as the second half turns on, boom, the whole team switches, the whole timeline switches. Jalen runs for a first down, and you got people posting it on Twitter saying, well, it doesn't matter if he misses wide open receivers because he does this. And, it's like, it's my favorite thing because it's like clockwork. Every week, everyone's so pissed off in the beginning and first half. Everyone's so mad and, oh, this team stinks, this quarterback stinks, blah, 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 blah. And then, boom, second half, team turns it on and everyone's happy again. And then we're keep winning. So hopefully the same, if that's going to be the formula, I mean, if we keep riding it out and we keep winning, then we're just going to have to live with it, and not too bad to live with.
No, that was definitely an Elliott Shore Parks tweet right there. Hurts misses open guys, but he can use his legs and get first downs, because I feel like I see that every week from him. But like, you gotta try and tame your emotions a little bit, because the first half's gonna be horrible, and then they're gonna turn it around the second half.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully, like we've talked about a lot, this Rams passing defense is pretty bad, and I think something too. Jalen. It was a lot talked about leading up to last game of how Jalen needs to, put his stamp on the NFC East. He needs to show that, it's still his division, and Jaden Daniels is the hot new guy, but, Jalen's the standard, and Jalen needs to outplay Jaden Daniels and all that stuff. And whether or not, obviously the Eagles won the game, and however you feel, about that second half, I think everyone came away from that game just not feeling great about how Jalen played. You see a lot of guys nationally that rip. I feel like people locally are higher on Jalen than people nationally are. But I think, national TV again, 2 weeks in a row after an okay performance last week, I think he's going to want to come out and kind of prove himself a little bit more this week, kind of make up for that bad performance. So hopefully he starts hot. It would be great, and it would be something that we've been looking for and I've been looking for, to really, really feel confident that this team can go places this season. And, I'm excited to get this bad boy kicked off and see how it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one tonight in Los Angeles. And some former Eagles news: Gardner Minshew has a broken collarbone, and he is out for the season. So, broken collarbone's never fun. So, sucks for the Eagles legend, Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, that is never good. Obviously, the Raiders are having a terrible season, and probably Gardner's last chance to start in the NFL, I would think. And real quick, because I know we're going to wrap it up, but I think something too that's important about this game in terms of Washington lost today. They lost 3 straight games. They lost to Dallas with Cooper Rush. I don't know if everyone was watching that game, but they got an 86-yard touchdown. Could have tied the game to go to the overtime. There's obviously some people that are saying go for the win there, go for 2, especially after your kicker had already missed an extra point earlier in the game, and then the kicker misses the extra point again, and they lose. But that just makes this game all more important for the Eagles. If the Eagles win this game, they already have a 1.5 game lead, I guess, on the division. Maybe 1.5 or 2.5. I guess 1.5. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they win this game tonight, they can get to a 2.5 game lead on the division with obviously just 6 games to go after today. And then they have Washington coming up, obviously. But to have that 2.5 game lead in the division is so huge with just such a small margin of error to go. Obviously, the Eagles have some tough games coming up with going to Washington again, the Steelers going to Baltimore next week. But if they have that 2.5 game lead, they have a little bit more room for error, and just makes this game all the more important tonight.
Yeah, that was crazy. That 86-yard touchdown, and then it was a horrible extra point. I mean, that ball was not even close to getting through those in the being good. And then, Jaden Daniels has another shot at the end to get the miracle. And off the hand, I was like, oh my God, did he do it again? And it was way short, and it was intercepted.
Well, that Cowboys special team player, the fact that he ran that in for a touchdown, I know that he's probably never going to have another touchdown in his life, but you got to go down there. I mean, you gave Washington a chance. You got to go down. But yeah, that was a wild game, and Washington's been in a lot of those games this year, and they're starting to not go their way.
Yeah, finally, Washington's falling back down to earth. Welcome to the NFL, Jaden Daniels. That's going to do it from us. Enough of the Washington Commanders. How about an Eagles win tonight? Eagles, Rams coming up. We got about 18 minutes until kickoff, so you can kick back, get a little nap in before the Eagles kick off on NBC. Thank you to SeatGeek and Foco for sponsoring. Go get some great holiday presents from them. You can save money with SeatGeek. You can save some money as well with Foco. Check out PhillySportsPorts.com post-game for the game summary. I will not have any observations this week. I'm not available Monday or Tuesday to write. Unless you want to do it, Sam, you can hop on. But I don't have any observations. But typically the day after, I'll have my takeaways. And follow on all social media throughout the game. We'll have our takes and other assorted stuff. So thank you, everybody, for watching and watching the show. And we'll see you next week. Baltimore. Big one next week. Another big one tonight. Thank you, everybody. See you.